Fire 'em up. Yep, you are tuned into the Andrew Gosser Show right here on 103.9 WYAB. Ice storm is imminent. Pandemonium is running wild across the globe and in the United States. But yet, here we are on the 50,000 watt blowtorch that is WYAB. And we're streaming on Rumble. And we're streaming on X. And we're streaming on YouTube. And we're streaming at WYAB.com. So if you can't pick up the signal, you can always catch us on the stream. We appreciate that. Look, if you haven't followed me on X, you're going to need to be because the spice will flow on my X account. And that's just Andrew Gosser, AndrewGasser. And the number today, if you want to be part of the show, the number is 601-879-0002. And the text line is open at 601-879-5060. Today is Wednesday, the 21st of January, 2026, and the mission here at the Andrew Gosser Show is standard. We are here to equip the saints. Who are the saints? Y'all are the saints. Now, I had a proverb because, I always like trying to drop wisdom on myself, not because I'm wise, but I try to ingratiate myself to the word. And I was in a text conversation, and this is what I was put on my heart. Faithful are the wounds of a friend, profuse are the kisses of an enemy. And you know what? We've got to talk about that. And some people have said, "Hey, Andy, you've been a little bit negative lately. You've been a little bit on a downer." It's not that I've been on a downer. I'm just looking at the reality of the situation of the battle space. I look at what's happening around not just the globe, not just my nation, but my state. And, you know, I'm not here to sit here and blow smoke up everyone's rear end. I'm here to see and report on the facts as I see them. And I always want to be honest with this audience. And I know that's a great reason why so many of you listen and text every day, sometimes call is because you know that you're going to get the truth. So, in the spirit of that, I want to start off with some good news. And I've got this letter here from the commander of the 325th Security Forces Squadron at the BA Farm in Terry, Mississippi, Colonel Delilah commanding, with the Director of Operations Ezekiel and Captains Phoebe and Ghostface Killer signing on to this. They are thankful to Agricultural Commissioner Andrew Gibson or Andy Gibson for coming out against HB 828. Delilah said she didn't want to have to get a license to go ahead and hunt coyotes that were going after her sheep and chickens. Ezekiel seconded the motion, and of course, the captains just fall in line because that's what a good CGO does. Andy Gibson came out against this HB 828, and I'm not sure why it was dropped. I'm not sure what the whole logic behind it is, but anytime that we're putting depredatoration laws on farmers, that's really needs more consideration and public discourse, and that didn't happen. I mean, the first time I heard about this was a off chance Facebook post from Rebecca Cheney, and I was like, "What on God's green earth is this?" I mean, there's an interpretation of that where literally every livestock guardian dog would have needed a license to go after nuisances. Anything with fur. We read it yesterday, but it looks like that one's going down in flames. So we're grateful for that. And it's some of the good stuff that's happening. I've had other people reach out to me privately and say, "Yeah, that's going to be dead on arrival." And so we'll continue to watch it and talk about it. And I'm just grateful and thankful to everybody in the WYB family and online listening audience who has that relationship with their state rep, with their state senator, with the lieutenant governor, who can go out there and make a difference to this. And that's going to kind of be the premise of the show today. Some good news, some bad news. And honestly, I'm not gonna call it blackpilling, I'm just gonna call it the reality of what's really happening in the United States. But that was some good news. We have some more good news, and it comes from one of the most unlikely sources to me personally, and I shouldn't necessarily even frame it like that. It just was an unlikely source to me. Now, the source of the news, of course, is the Magnolia Tribune, and we know that Russ Letourneau and his crew over there, in this case, Daniel Tyson, is doing a great job on covering the stories that they do. I like them. They call balls and strikes. They do have a little bit of a conservative slant, but that's okay because they make it evident. Senate unanimously votes to eliminate 22 state boards and commissions. And there's a picture of our Lieutenant Governor, Delbert Hosemann. And this was Delbert Hosemann's idea. And I know a lot of people are sitting there going, "Oh, there goes Andy." I'm just saying, when somebody does something good, we got to talk about it, right? When something good happens, we've got to talk about it. And 22 commissions and boards are getting um, eliminated with this vote. Now, it still has to go to the House, and the House still has to vote on it. But again, things are making their way through the House and the Senate, especially in the early part of the session. There's still a lot of good bills to come up, some of them not so good. And there is absolutely no way that everybody listening in this audience can keep up with every single bill. It's just impossible. But if we all work together and we all look at different things that interest us, some of you might not like farming. Some of you might be interested in roads and transportation. There's a very clear majority of people in this listening audience who care about education. And I've got some stuff on that too. But this was Senate Bill 2017, which the Senate Government Structure Committee passed on January 12th, and it went to the full Senate. So I'm pretty excited. So let's just talk about some of these boards and commissions because, as you know, I am a recovering politician. And while I do not know all the tricks of the trade, I know a few. And one of the oldest ones in the book is to call something the Civil Rights Commission. And who in their right mind is going to vote against that? Well, the Senate just did. The Bentonville Recreation District, gone. The Mississippi Council of Advisors in Acupuncture. Yep. Here's one that probably took a little bit of thought to vote against. The Mississippi Interagency Council on Homelessness. Hmm. The Harrison County Parkway Commission. The Mississippi Commission on the Holocaust. Uh-oh. I wonder if the Israeli lobby groups are going to come after Mississippi now that we got this. Oh, this is going to be a good one. Control and management of the Bayview, forgive me for my pronunciation of that, the Jefferson Davis Shrine. That board or council is been dissolved or has been asked to be dissolved. The Mississippi Advisory Council on Faith-Based Initiatives, that commission is now gone. The Civil War Battlefield Commission. The Mississippi Electronic Recording Commission. The Sequentennial of the American Civil War Commission. Mississippi Veterans Memorial Stadium Commission. The Council on Obesity Prevention and Management. Well, that's a tough one. The Mississippi Commission on the Status of Women. Do we even know what a woman is in Mississippi in 2026? I think we in Mississippi know what a woman is. I'm not sure that Ketanji Brown Jackson over at the Supreme Court knows what a woman is. In fact, she couldn't even give a definition of it under oath. I wonder if she put her hand on the Bible or she just take the oath and raise her right hand. Demon. Mississippi Civil Rights Museum Mississippi Civil Rights Museum Advisory Commission, gone. Mississippi Windstorm Mitigation Coordinating Council, gone. The Commission of Road Protection, gone. Harbor and Terminal, gone. Hazardous Waste Facilities Siting Authority, gone. And last but not least, the Mississippi Superconducting Super Collider Authority. That's gone. Now, I did read the story, and I don't have the total price tag on what we're actually saving, but Lieutenant Governor Delbert Hosemann did say, and I have to agree with him, if these commissions aren't spending the money that they're being allocated, in one case, they were allocated $47,000 and they hadn't spent the money at all, then, hey, you wanna know what? Gone, get rid of it. That's part of the problem that we have in the United States of America, in Mississippi, and our local governments is we keep things on the books and we just don't ever get rid of them. We just cling on to them because that's what we're all about. And, as a Tea Party guy myself, fiscal responsibility, limited government, and free markets, I'm all about limiting the power of government. I don't need them in my farm. I don't need them telling me how to handle my coyote. Well, I don't have a coyote program because I've got 4 able deputized officers who go out and conduct the farm's business on a daily basis, and they're not unionized, and their wages are pretty good too. The sweet pea every day. Like, and I know this is kind of a tangent, but it's farming, and I feel like people enjoy this. If you've got a Great Pyrenees livestock guardian dog, one of the things they tell you is not to love on them, just to let them go out there and guard the animals, and don't give them any special treats. Well, at the BA farm, we screwed that all up. Our dogs are treated like the royalty that they are. They're, arguably one of my best investments on the farm. I don't worry about predation losses. I just don't. I think we've had 1 chicken get killed by a predator, but that chicken was not where it was supposed to be, and the dogs couldn't get there to actually protect that chicken, and it was just a big pile of feathers, and yep, that happens, cost of doing business. It was a rooster, so I wasn't really too concerned. But every day, not only that, but, like, with this ice storm coming up, hot meals, double feed, and these dogs are awesome. So, when you get good bills going through and bad bills going through, we tend to dwell because it's our human nature to dwell on the negative. But there's some good positive stuff coming out of the House and the Senate. I know that the state is almost equally divided on this education bill, and I do have some points, but I think I'm gonna hold off on those points till Monday when I can sit down with Brother Clay and see what he thinks about it because he is definitely anti-school reform bill because of the public to public transfer option, and I just wanted to talk about that, and again, this is again, it's a dialogue, right? It's not sitting here throwing spitballs and grenades and everything else, snowballs at our politicians and then ducking and hiding out. That's what a lot of conservatives have labeled as, and we're not. We really wanna be part of the system. I genuinely think that our education system has failed us in civics, and a lot of people don't actually know how to get involved in their local governments, how to get involved in their local party. That or they just don't have enough time. Or there are some of us who just like enjoying throwing the snowball and the hand grenade into the middle of the pile of politicians and watching them all scatter as they're trying to figure out what just happened. And I have to be truthful. I used to be one of those people 10, 12 years ago. I didn't throw a snowball or a hand grenade, but I did jump off the roof into the pool screaming cannonball while all of the politicians were on their floaties drinking their cocktails, and I overflipped everything. And people are saying, "Andy, you're boastful." I'm not boasting about this at all. I'm telling you what I did, and I regret it. I genuinely regret it because, yes, did I have change? Yep. Did it last for about 8 years? Yep. But did it revert to type because I didn't think about what I was doing in the moment? The heat of the passion of the moment, if you will? There's a lot of us out there that do things like that, and then we end up saying something we regret later. Regret a certain action we took, a vote we took, a campaign we took on. And it's just not political. We have these situations in life, whether it be drugs, sex, marriage, dating, financial. Did I really need that 2026 Raptor? Yes, yes, I did need that. But did we really need that? I mean, I'm speaking to myself here. Did I really need that rivet counter SD 40-2 Chicago and Northwestern model that I just bought for 260 bucks? Yes, I needed that, but I really didn't need it. And I know that as we're going down this walk today, we're gonna talk about a few things. And we are listening to the Andrew Gosser Show on 103.9 WYAB. You know it. We'll be right back. And we are back on the Andrew Gosser Show right here on 103.9 WYAV via the text line. This is coming from Sister Lisa. Who are the legislators who are coming up with these bills? Do we know? Are they doing other scary bills also? The question is yes, we know who they are. In the case of House Bill 828, the one that I was distinctly concerned about, it was State Representatives Keene and Harris. And what was also really uh, grateful and thankful, Clay actually texted me a group in Rankin County that I'm not in. I did ask to join, but there's some people who are for this bill who are speaking out about it passionately. And what I want to say to that is, whatever you do, whether you are for something or whether you are against something, do so in a voice that will not reflect ill upon yourself at a future date and time. And I know that there are a lot of great one-liners that I had, political debates where I know I sliced and diced my opponent at the time. But again, politics is a long game, and those words can come back to bite you. And it did me to a certain extent. I never did anything criminal or anything that would otherwise be ruled a crime. But boy, did I say some things that I regret. Absolutely. Did I use some analogies? Absolutely, that, I shouldn't have done, and that's why I'm telling you now while I'm repenting openly in front of everybody here, is because, it's like our kids. As they're growing up, we try to teach them, and one of the things we say to our kids, I say this to my daughter all the time, "Don't make the same mistakes I made." But what do? They march right off proudly through the front door, and they go make the exact same mistake that you made, and you're like, "You what are you doing? Do you realize how this just set you back XYZ?" And they're like, "Oh, I see it now. I should have listened to you." Yeah, saying the exact same thing now. But that's the House bill stuff. So, Lisa, there are tons of other bills out there. I'm just being truthful with you. I do not have the bandwidth, the brain bites to go through every single bill that's out there. And that's where we, the people, come into effect when it comes to this. That's why I'm excited when I hear other radio show hosts on the station talk about, hey, get to know your state rep, get to know your state senator, get to know the lieutenant governor, get to know the state auditor, get to know the state agricultural commissioner, the secretary of state, get to know the governor. I'm not saying that you're going to go have lunch with the governor next week. I'm sure you could probably arrange something if you had a fundraiser or whatever. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing either. I'm not like disparaging the governor or anything. You're not going to get that kind of thing with a statewide representative, but your local state rep, you I guarantee it. I could um, call up my state rep who is I know his first name is Fabian, and he's a Democrat, but I know if I call him up and said, "Hey, can I please talk to you about this?" He would not only does he take my call, he does it. And I'm not saying we agree on anything from Adam, but because I'm cordial, because I watch my tongue, we can have those conversations, and that's how we have these good bills get through and make things happen. So that's what we're going with there. This came out. Yep, I got that one. This came out yesterday, but it was talked about the news this morning, and it's going to lead into the second hour where we're going to go much more national. But two former Mississippi school superintendents plead guilty to embezzlement. Oh, there goes Andy on his um, school board rant again. Yep, it's a shame that Shad White had to go make this all happen. And but that's what happens when you have a real auditor in your state, unlike Minnesota, right? It people always say they wanna audit, they want everything, and then you go and do it, and then they're like, "This is actually gonna be painful, this is actually gonna hurt, I don't want it." I remember, as an example, when we did a forensic audit, and a forensic audit is truly painful. It is the equivalent of take not a microscope, like the James Webb Space Telescope and focusing on your r unit of government, with a single point of focus. Nothing escapes, and it was painful because while in my administration, we didn't have anything that was illegal. There were things that looked really bad, and instead of explaining it in a 15-second soundbite, it took like a thorough 15-minute conversation of why did you use this auditor that was 15 times more expensive than you could have got this audit from the person that we always did. And these were real decisions that I had to explain to the constituents. But I digress. The U.S. Department of Justice well, that explains it too. The U.S. Department of Justice announced Tuesday that Earl Jones Nelson of Biloxi in Mississippi, and Monica Smith Taylor of St. Louis, Missouri, appeared in federal court before District Judge Shannon Ayock in Aberdeen and pled guilty to conspiracy to commit embezzlement. According to the DOJ, the previous court date on October 2025, Mario Willis, South Haven, Mississippi, also pled guilty to the same conspiracy. And people are saying, aha, Pam Bondi doing something. See, DOJ's doing something. Court documents from July 2019 to May 2022 show that Nelson was the superintendent of Clarksdale Municipal Schools and became the superintendent of Leake County School District in October 2022. And this it just goes on and talks about all the conspiracy of trying to embezzle funds. And that's why we need people on the outside always looking in at the government, just not the administration. We have more than enough administrators. That's why it's so critical for all of us who are genuinely interested in local government to actually look at the bills, actually look at the agendas. Dare I say FOIA, Freedom of Information Act. FOIA works funny here in Mississippi, let me tell you too. I don't have the full time to get in on that, but FOIA works very, very differently here in Mississippi than it does in other states. But we're out there doing great stuff. There is a lot of good stuff happening. You've got the president overseas just completely breaking down NATO, and, I think I have 1 or 2 sound bites that I might play from that. But I don't want to come across as this curmudgeon, this black-pilled radio show host who's just, "The sky is falling, the world is doomed, everything's going to hell in a handbasket." There are good people out there, and there are good people that you might not agree with who are out there doing good things. We just have different ways of getting there. You are listening to The Andrew Gosser Show on 103.9 WYAB. We'll be right back. It is the dulcet tones of the Andrew Gosser Show on 103.9 WYAB. This is coming from the DeSoto Times and Tribune. Mississippi State Senator McClendon introduces bill to encourage cooperation with ICE. Yep, because we're in the great state of Mississippi and we appreciate our law enforcement officers, federal, state, local, or otherwise. We want to partner to make sure that we keep Mississippi free, that we're not invaded by illegal immigrants, illegal aliens. We don't mind the legal ones, those who go through the process and are here legally. There is no such thing as an anchor baby, by the way. There's no other nation in the earth on the earth that does that. But of course, the liberals in the United States are trying to make that happen. It's going through the courts. But let's get to Senator McClendon and his awesome bill. State Senator Michael McClendon has introduced new legislation that would offer state grants to encourage state and local law enforcement agencies to cooperate with U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, better known as ICE. I totally, and again, you know how we were talking in the first segment about all those boards and commissions, how we use these fancy names to pull at our heartstrings and kind of sit there and stick it to our opponents when we're sitting there. This is a perfect example of this. Mississippi State Senate Bill 2329, known as the Mississippi Glacier Act, you know, that's awesome in and of itself, creates a first of its kind state grant program to support Mississippi law enforcement agencies that partner with ICE throughout the federal government or the federal 287 program. The bill establishes a dedicated fund to reimburse local agencies for the cost of expenses tied directly to enforcing federal immigration law. This is great. Can we go look at One Voice Jackson? Attention FBI, attention ICE, go look at One Voice Jackson and some of the things that they've done during the summer to help, quote unquote, immigrants get legal documentation such as driver's license and social security numbers through the state of Mississippi. I'm just saying, you might want to look there. Mississippi is not going to pretend illegal immigration is someone else's problem. You're right, but that's what we've come to here in America. You know, it's not direct the wolf is not directly at my front door, so I'm not gonna worry about it. Those coyotes are messing up my neighbor's farm. I'm not gonna worry about it until it comes here. We have to take these things seriously, and again, people are asking, "What are some good bills that are coming through?" Well, this is one. Do you know who your state senator is? Could you reach out to them right now and give them a call? Well, Andy, we have a supermajority in the Senate. No, actually, we don't have a supermajority in the Senate anymore, thanks to being sued and having to redraw Senate district maps. We do got some good state senators out there, though, and they're trying to do the right thing. And it's one thing to say, "Well, you know, I've got Senator XYZ. I know they're gonna vote my way. I send him a check for $100 every year, and I know he's gonna vote the right way, and we're good with it." I support her local fish fry every year and make sure that she gets reelected and she votes the right way every that's not a relationship. Now, don't get me wrong, we politicians love those types of donors, the ones who are always good for 100, 250, 500 every year, and they might send me a text saying, "Happy birthday" on my birthday. I'll make sure that I heart emoji that and send them, "Oh, thank you so much. Really appreciate your support." That's 45 seconds well spent. But actually either going out to lunch with them, picking him up, picking up the telephone and talking to him or her. I'm saying him a lot because I'm a guy. If I was a girl, I would probably saying her, but it's okay. There's nothing sexist about that. It's just human nature and what we are. But building up those relationships again, this is going to be interesting because I wonder if other states are going to follow on Mississippi's lead. We have all these great conservative leaders. Well, let's do some stuff. I tell you right now, Minnesota would not be in the situation it's in if you had Delbert Hosemann, Tate Reeves, and Speaker White leading the charge in that state. Attorney General Ellis, that's another story right there. We'll table that discussion for later. But you can totally see the difference between people who are trying to do good stuff and trying to do bad stuff. And I'm very grateful for the Glacier Act in Mississippi. In fact, I'm sending this to a couple of my friends around the nation, going ahead to see, hey, this might be something that you want to enact with. And this is all because of the great big beautiful bill, which we know has plenty of flaws, errors, and other problems in there, but we're going to have to live with it. So let's take advantage of it and get some of these people off the streets. And by the way, if you saw President Trump's speech yesterday, where he was holding up pictures of some of these illegal aliens that were taken off the streets in Minnesota, and the mainstream media wasn't reporting on any of them. They'll report on the one bad thing, right? But all the good stuff that's happening, that doesn't sell newspapers, that doesn't sell ads, that doesn't go ahead and meet what their narrative is. So they don't talk about it. And I was thinking about playing a couple clips of it, but uh, it just it's much easier to just say that the amount of bad people being taken off the street in Minnesota because of what ICE and our other law enforcement agencies are doing is beyond reproach. Beyond reproach. And we've all talked. I mean, I saw it make the rounds on Twitter where CNN embedded with ICE back in 2016, and ICE actually detained somebody who was a legal citizen, and CNN just kind of swept it under the rug like it was no big deal. To be fair, conservatives weren't really complaining about it either, but it's interesting to see what 10 years can do to a news organization. Long gone are the days of Bernard Shaw and others at CNN who were hunkered down in Iraq as the Gulf War I was kicking off. People can say, I don't like that war. Well, I didn't like it either. But there they were in a hotel room as bombs were being dropped by F-117 Nighthawks. Incredible. That was a technology that nobody knew about then, much like the technology that nobody really knew about until we went and got Maduro from Venezuela. President Trump did talk about that. Let me see, where did it put this? Um, he basically went on a talk show and said, "We have weapons that nobody knows about." Yeah, here it is. Let's go ahead and play this one, clip 4.
Speaking of Venezuela, there was a weapon used, a sonic weapon, that took out many of the Cuban bodyguards that were used to defend Maduro. Lots of people saw the details about that weapon and were concerned. Is that something that Americans should be afraid of, something the United States is combating?
Yeah, it's something I don't want to, nobody else has it. We have weapons that nobody knows about. And I say it's probably good not to talk about them, but we have some amazing weapons. That was an amazing attack. Don't forget, that house was in the middle of a fort, an army base, a big one, a lot of soldiers, and they came in and they did their job. We lost nobody.
And that is the President of the United States. Andy, he's talking about a classified weapon system. Yes, he's also the commander in chief who has the power to declassify anything he wants to. And did he give specifics about operations capabilities? Did he give techniques, tactics, and procedures? Nope. Is there a army or is there a US military officer out there who's corroborating any of the actual technical specs of that system? Nope. So people talking about, he's divulging classified information. No, he's not. But this is gonna completely lead into the Mar-a-Lago discussion we're gonna have in the next hour. Because we have to talk about it. And there's just I'm seeing the text come in, and some of you are talking about your pound of flesh, and you're sitting there and say, "Yeah, you agree with me now." Well, it's not that I agree with you. It's just that we have to really give the system time to for the gears to turn, for things to happen, and I'm all for that. But at the same time, I'm also for the First Amendment of free speech, not like Don Lemon tried to enforce inside a church on during a service, no less. But I think that there are people out there who are disenchanted with the DOJ, with the FBI, who do have valid complaints. And look, every time that something really big happens when it comes to DOJ or FBI, we have on Chris Hinkle, who's honorably retired FBI agent, great dude, and, he sometimes gives an answer that I don't necessarily want to hear, that I don't necessarily like, but I do agree with it, and I'm sure that there are other things that I say that are very offensive to people, and that's okay, because that's what we are. But the moment that we shut down that dissent, legal dissent, that's not inciting a riot or violence, that's when we're gonna start having real big problems in America. You are listening to the Andrew Gosser Show on 103.9 WYB. We're gonna take our last commercial break at the first hour. We're gonna be right back. And we are back here at the Andrew Gosser Show on 103.9 WYAB. Man, the time just flies by. And we really didn't talk about anything national. We really focused on the state in and of itself. We talked about all the good stuff that was happening, how we stopped or appeared to stop a bad bill. We talked about the importance of going ahead and reaching out to your state rep, your state senator, building that relationship. The best day to plant a tree was 15 years ago. The next best day is today. One of the things that I did yesterday was I gassed up my tractor, gassed up my car, made sure that the Kubota was hooked up. Tomorrow I pick up a load of feed for the storm, and I'm getting ready for this ice storm. But I was listening to this Instagram post of these kids who have absolutely no idea of what to expect in an ice storm, and they're wondering, should they stock up on Chick-fil-A? I mean, where have we come as a society? And we're talking Minnesota. We're Minnesota, or we're talking Mississippi. We're Mississippi strong. When bad weather comes, we band together. We make sure we take care of each other, and let's be truthful about it. The youth have always followed their seniors in times of distress, but it just seems that their seniors and the parents have been replaced by their anxiety devices, and they need to go ask their AI bot agent, if they call it an agent, like Agent Smith back in the Matrix. Man, has that not come full circle? But if you tomorrow is going to be too late. You're going to start seeing lines today. Probably start lining up for gas, for food. Just go out and make sure you got the things you need to take care of yourself for up to 72 hours without power, without electricity, without internet. Oh my goodness. I mean, it's going to be cold. Do you have a list of friends and neighbors that you're going to be checking on? Perhaps you go through your church or synagogue or other house of worship to make sure that you're checking on people. Because if we're to believe the weather guessers and all the hype, this is gonna be a pretty good storm. This could be like a 2021 type of thing or worse. In 2021, w we had a house in Madison, and I would drive to Terry down 55 for those 5 days where it was just snow-packed. I had a four-wheel drive Toyota, and I felt I could drive on snow and ice. I was qualified being a northerner. And instead of taking me 30 minutes to get to the farm, it took me an hour and a half, but that was alright. Sheep did great, chickens did great, everybody lived. Isaiah, Samson, and Delilah were doing work, but if you haven't made those preparations yet to go ahead and make sure that your family, friends, and neighbors are taken care of, today would be the day to do it. Don't procrastinate, don't put that off. I just got this forwarded to me from, a Twitter follower, and, this is President Trump talking about Iceland.
So we want a piece of ice for world protection, and they won't give it. We've never asked for anything else, and we could have kept that piece of land, and we didn't. So they have a choice. You can say yes, and we will be very appreciative, or you can say no, and we will remember. So,
And with that, that is Trump diplomacy. Some people say that's threatening. Well, do you remember when somebody doesn't do something you asked them to do nicely? And this is getting onto it a little bit, but, we still have a right through NATO to Greenland. People don't realize that, but it's true. And we're just simply asking for it back. We've always had the Russians floating around up there, but now we have the Chinese floating around up there. It's pretty crazy. We'll be right back.
But equally importantly, we're cracking down on more than $19 billion in fraud that was stolen by Somalian bandits. Can you believe that Somalian? They turned out to be higher IQ than we thought. I always say these are low IQ people. How did they go into Minnesota and steal all that money? And we have, they're pirates. They're good pirates, right? But we shoot them out of the water just like we shoot the drug boats out. They're not pirating too many boats lately, do you notice? When they go out into those boats, they want to take over $1.5 billion tanker loaded up with oil. And they say, we're going to blow up your boat. They have powerful weapons. You hit the side of the boat, you blow the whole thing up. The insurance companies are petrified. So they say, just give them the boat. We'll give them money instead. And I don't do that. We blow them right the hell out of the water. We see them going out. We blow them out of the water. We don't have any pirates so much anymore. If we do, they won't be there long. We've cut down with the hitting of the boats.
Welcome back to the Andrew Gosser Show right here on the Blowtorch. That is 103.9 WYAB, 50,000 watts of power blasting off. Now, that doesn't mean that you can get all the state, but we are the largest FM talk show radio station in the state. That's non-music. And we reach more people than everybody else. And it's awesome. I'm very grateful and thankful to be working here. We're streaming on Rumble, X, YouTube, WYB. So if you can't pick up the Blowtorch, please feel free to follow us and listen to us on the stream. We're worldwide. Follow me on Andrew Gosser on X. I appreciate that. If you want to be part of the program today, 601-879-0002 is the phone-in number. The text line is 601-879-5060. And the mission here is standard at the Andrew Gosser Show. We are here to equip the saints. Who are the saints? Y'all are the saints. And again, this was not what I had planned for today. I was going down a different route, but hey, faithful are the wounds of a friend, profuse are the kisses of the enemy. And I guess we need to start off by what is really starting to push this whole DOJ situation over the edge. And our great president, President Donald J. Trump, was just speaking at Davos, World Economic Forum, central bankers, the elites of the elites, the ones who send all the money to our politicians to try to buy votes. Most of the time it works. Every once in a while, you get one that doesn't work and they pay the price, but they have their soul at least. Let's listen to the president just for a minute.
But equally importantly, we're cracking down on more than $19 billion in fraud that was stolen by Somalian bandits. Can you believe that Somalian? They turned out to be higher IQ than we thought. I always say these are low IQ people. How did they go into Minnesota and steal all that money? And we have, they're pirates. They're good pirates, right? But we.
That's enough from the president. Not that I want to cut the president off, but airtime is precious. How did we find out about this Somali situation? Was it the intrepid reporting of MS Now / BS Always? Was it the journos over at CNN? Was it the legacy media of ABC, NBC, and CBS? Or was it a YouTube podcaster who was also on X, 23 years old, Jehovah Witness, 23, single, virgin, doesn't drink alcohol, and doesn't smoke drugs? Pick one. And then we have the riots ensue in Minnesota. And everybody, I mean, I have really dear friends who are saying, "How come you're so upset that at the DOJ? How come you're so upset about all this?" I'm upset because the institutions that we've had in place to protect us from situations such as these have been completely ignored and for lack of better word, bastardized. I have good friends who are working at the DOJ. And you know, I remember when first started the radio show on June 2nd, 2025, and people were already getting fired up over the Epstein stuff. And we were all given these binders, these white binders. Remember all the social media types, Benny Johnson, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. They were given these binders of the goods on Epstein. And what's happened to them? Where have we been? Well, Congress is launching a new investigation. Hooray! A new investigation from a politician. Hooray! Lindsey Graham on Air Force One standing next to the president. We're going to get him. We're getting more and more entangled into certain situations around the world that we don't need to be entangled in. You know, there is so much low-hanging fruit. And I'm not saying I'm the world's greatest prosecutor. I'm not saying I have all the experience in law enforcement, but you know what I do know is my 2 eyes. And I talk to a lot of other people with law enforcement who say, "Yeah, Andy, you are kind of right on that." And the lack of prosecutions coming out of DOJ is something that needs to be talked about. And so, like, I've been racking my brain over the last hour of why this wouldn't happen. And the only thing I can think of is that the DOJ doesn't want to bring cases before judges that they know are just going to rule them out. And it's difficult for me. Is it we're not prosecuting because DOJ doesn't want to go ahead and do that? And I'm like, well, let's look at the case in Florida with the classified documents at Mar-a-Lago, where Biden's FBI, I want to state that clearly, Biden's FBI staged a bunch of photos where they took all those classified covers and laid them all out. They actually created that. Where's the prosecution on that? Are we so worried that the judges are gonna throw out our indictments and our cases that we're not going to bring them? I I fully expect to be persecuted, not prosecuted, but persecuted if the Democrats ever get back into power. I totally expect it, not because I violated anything from US code other than expressing my free speech right that I've been given. There's so many things that we could what about Fauci? What's going on with that? What about George Soros? What's going on with that? The Epstein files. And this is just my opinion, which even some of my strongest Democratic friends and Republican friends, I mean, like, these are Democrats I still talk to in Illinois that are just they completely agree that if the Epstein files were ever to truly be unleashed, that it would take down so many Democrats and Republicans that they're just doing everything that they can to cover that up. And to me, it's a sham. What about January 6th? Where are the convictions for all the operatives in the crowd that were inciting violence, which we have documented, by the way, where we had honorably retired United States Air Force officer having to set up a prisoner of war wing inside US correctional facilities for persecution of the United States government against its citizens. Where are the prosecutions for that? Where's even the charges? It's under investigation. Don't worry, the Senate's gonna hold a hearing on it next week. Hooray! What about the follow-up to the Doge findings? All the fraud that was found by Doge. The only reason that Elon Musk wasn't as successful as he was with Doge is because he didn't put it on X for everybody to watch the live streams as they were uncovering it all. For that, you've gotta be a 23-year-old Jehovah Witness virgin who doesn't drink alcohol or smoke drugs to go ahead and do that. Without that kid, Nick Shirley, you wouldn't even know about the Leering Center. Without that kid, Nick Shirley, we wouldn't even have the things that are being exposed in Minnesota now. I don't care what anybody says. The only reason that Pam Bondi's in Minnesota today is because she's trying to cover her behind. And I have a right to be angry. I'm not sitting here asking people to go out there and start protesting and marching around or doing stupid stuff. I just know this is how you feel because this is how I feel. And I've got a track record on this radio show saying, hold on just a little bit longer, hold on a little bit longer, hold on a little bit longer. What about the auto pen scandal? What about what about codifying all of President Trump's executive orders? What about the investigation into COVID in China? I know I talked about Fauci, but what about all the money that went through the University of North Carolina over to Wuhan? I was shamed publicly for calling it the Chinese virus back in the day. Where are the prosecutions there? I'm not calling out the FBI. This is from top down. And this is not to say that the FBI isn't stopping literally thousands of things that could really go bad inside the United States. Maybe it's not the focus, ladies and gentlemen. Maybe we have been so overrun by illegal aliens. The FBI's sole purpose and mission in life is to break up all these terror cells that have been implanted around the United States, including right here in Mississippi. There's videos of it, of people coming into this country. "You do not know who I am, but one day you will know who I am." I'm not sitting here trying to bash on the FBI, and I'm not trying to bash on the people who are busting their butts, but when you're I mean, think of the political capital that all of us spent, not just to get President Trump elected into office, but how many of us called Senator Wicker, called Senator Cindy Hyde-Smith, say, "Please support Pam Bondi for Attorney General." I continue to say that we wouldn't be necessarily having this problem with Matt Gaetz as our Attorney General. Yep, he had a lot of more skeletons in the closet for you holy roller types. I get it, but he was a take no nonsense kind of attorney, and we absolutely deserve an answer as to why these things aren't happening. And you know what? If all of a sudden tomorrow comes out and all these cases get dropped and everything starts happening, I will be the first one to formally repent and apologize publicly for it. But this is why all of a sudden you're seeing multiple people say, "Hey, start knowing your state reps, start knowing your state senators." And packing the courts is not gonna help any of this. And when we get back, we're gonna talk about how a state is packing their Supreme Court because they don't like the rulings that are coming down from their court. And it's gonna absolutely infuriate you. It's gonna infuriate you. You are listening to the Andrew Gosser Show on 103.9 WYAB. We will be right back. And we are back at the Andrew Gosser Show right here on 103.9. You know, things are kicking off in Davos. I haven't listened to the audio yet. I do have it, but the pull quote is, and this is coming from the Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, talking about Gavin Newsom in Davos. He said he being Gavin Newsom is here this week with his billionaire sugar daddy Alex Soros. Wow, to drop that kind of fire in the lion's den, that's good stuff. That's good stuff. You know, we didn't even talk in the last segment about the Russia hoax. Nothing's ever come of that. And I'm just speaking for myself here. I'm not speaking for anybody else, but I really don't care if they've been fired from the FBI. I don't care if they've lost their security clearance or anything like that. That when you are manipulating elections in a way that they were trying to do, that's a crime. They need to be put in jail or at least prosecuted. And, you know, I'm not saying this from a point too, because I was trying to be an attorney at one point. Oh, we got a caller here. I'm going to take the call, but I'm pulling down yet. Won't bring them on yet. But, you know, I was studying to be an attorney for a while. In fact, my degree is in pre-law, criminology and pre-law. And one of the things that one of the prosecutors said is you got to have a good prosecution rate. You got to have a good prosecution rate. At some point, we've got to hold these people to account. And that's where all I got to say about that. Let's bring up this caller here and see what's going on. Hello, you're on the air.
Andrew, I don't weigh in very often on things, and I certainly don't consider myself a black pill kind of guy. I do understand that the wheels of justice turn slowly. They must turn efficiently, because if you're going to bring someone into court and you believe they've done something wrong and you want them prosecuted, you got to have an airtight case to make sure. But you know, it's been gut wrenching running across videos of folks that they literally do feel like they're at the precipice and they're just freaked out. It's like we've heard for so long that there's going to be accountability, and we're still waiting and we're holding on hope. And I believe that this will be a year of action. But I scribbled down some things, and I just wanted to rattle this off. And once again, I don't want to be considered a black pill person, but these are the frustrations that I hear, and I just thought I would throw this out there. So
have at it.
We're sick of hearing about investigations, allegations, probes, inquiries, indictments, questions, alleged wrongdoings, misappropriations, grifting, lawfare, scandals, bribes. And then we get into appeals, injunctions, and Lord have mercy, this banner of democracy. You know, people are interested in arrests, prosecutions, fines, accountability, consequences, prison time, restitution, sanctions, solitary confinement, for crying out loud, life sentences. Just remove these people from society, put them in handcuffs, shackles, orange jumpsuits. What we're not interested in is, okay, so they arrest these people and then they get monitored and they get sent to these country club minimal federal security facilities with ankle bracelets. They get a slap on the wrist and, oh, there's some public shaming. They're allowed to retire. They resign. You know, it's time for action. It's signal, not noise. It's time for punishment for breaking the laws. And there's got to be a sentence, and there's got to finally be a conclusion, an ending, some closure. That's what people are really waiting for.
Brother Bruce, I couldn't have said it any better myself. And honestly, there's no way I could have said that. What you just said, I'm going to clip it and I'm going to send it to Pam Bondi and I'm going to send it to Cash Patel and just say, look, we know you're working, but until you actually have some real food on the table, don't tell us anymore. And I don't think we're jaded. I don't think we're black pilled. We're just Americans who want accountability.
Yes.
It's absolutely insane, how many people are going over this ledge saying that, people like you and like I who are just wanting accountability, and Bruce, you said that so eloquently, man, I can't state that enough. This is what we want, and if we can't get it at the national level, can we at least get it at the state level? I mean, when's the last time you heard about Lynn Finch prosecuting an election or voter fraud scheme?
Yeah, and yeah, I've heard this phrase before, I think we've probably all been guilty of using this, and it's two words. It's perp walks,
Yeah.
and I get it. That there's something about, and I don't want to call it revenge, but you can call it accountability or consequences. There's something about seeing someone put in handcuffs, brought before the media, and you finally feel like, okay, they got him, dadgummit. Finally, we've heard of accusations and subpoenas and blah, 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 but you finally see the tangible evidence with your eyes.
Yep.
And it finally gives you what you feel like is a little positive momentum. And I really think at this point in time, that's what we need to see. And you mentioned earlier, there is so much low hanging fruit. What in the world are they waiting for? And so I'm going to give you my opinion, and I usually raise my hand when I talk to people. So this is my opinion. This is not what I've heard from somebody else. This is me drawing conclusions. The only thing that makes sense, if you buy into this administration trying to really make a big difference, they have put all their eggs in one basket. And they are trying to make a massive, massive case for election reform to absolutely remove these people and take away any chance they have in the future. And it is a massive undertaking in order to pull this off. And so there's a lot of things that are being brushed to the side to make sure that we've got the paper ballots. We go all the way back to 2020. We fill in all the gaps and make sure that when this gets presented and pushed out there, it is absolute shock and awe.
I can agree with that to a certain extent, Bruce, but let me ask you this, and you give me your opinion. Okay, you're talking about the election fraud. What about COVID? What about Russiagate? Can the Department of Justice, with its infinite resources, truly infinite resources, can they not walk, chew bubblegum, tap their head, and rub their belly at the same time?
Okay, so once again, I'll give you another opinion. I'll raise my hand here,
Yeah,
Andrew.
I'm listening. This is great debate.
I think that the election portion of the list was probably argued for days, weeks, and months as to priority of, do we go after COVID? Do we go after Russiagate? What has to be the priority? I think the election integrity has to be the priority, and you hope that you get to the rest of the list. You've got to make sure the cheating and the removal across the entire country can take place because of election fraud. And this means chasing the money. This means people that stuff ballots. This is all inclusive. This, to me, is the absolute biggest thing that has to take place. And it's David versus Goliath. There has to be God's intervention, or it ain't going to happen.
Do you think we would be where we're at right now, today, on this, January 21st, 2026, without Nick Shirley and going into Minnesota? Do you think we would have Pam Bondi doing all this stuff that she's doing now?
I didn't say it was pretty, Andrew. And I didn't say there weren't things that are, jaw-dropping that have to be addressed. You've got so much going on. If you're truly going to take as many and I'll tell you this, I think the Department of Justice is still an absolute sewer full of rats, and that it's it is loaded with those constantly trying to undermine, remove, erase. I think Bondi's team is thinner than we realize.
Then why do we have elections? Because I can tell you my opinion on why nothing's happened yet. They're just waiting for America to lose its attention on what's happening inside the country and looking at a Venezuela or a Davos or Iceland or a Greenland or fill in the next catastrophe or crisis next, whether it be Iran, whether it be Israel. They're just trying
Right?
to keep us from focusing on the things that are really important, and we need to turn that introspection on ourselves. I'd also say, um, I think I've got 39 trillion reasons why I feel that the DOJ should be able to walk and chew bubble gum at the same time.
I don't disagree with that, sir.
And by the way, how's that price of silver doing?
94, 95 ish.
Brother, do you remember when we were chatting at that when it was at like 52?
Yes, and I loaded up some more at that, sir.
Now we are not a investing show. We don't have our licenses or nothing like that. This is strictly for entertainment purposes only, and we just sit there and make that claim. But Bruce, I really appreciate it. Hey, how things going at iGear Optical, my friend?
I'll actually give, and I don't mind saying this. So God has been so good to us. Um, last year was pretty amazing. Because of the increase, hey, we get to do it again another year.
Amen to that. Amen to that. We sure do appreciate you, Bruce. We really do.
Well, Andrew, thanks for your time, buddy. Your show is must listen and a steady dose of truth day after day. And I appreciate everything that you bring to the table, your presentation, your hard work, certainly your research. And it's obvious that your heart shows through, and you have a heart of integrity, sir. Keep doing what you're doing, and Godspeed.
Thank you, Brother Bruce. And that's Brother Bruce over at iGear Optical. If you haven't gone and seen him yet because you need a pair of glasses, you should. He takes all the time in the world to make sure that he gets to know you, what you're going to do with your glasses. Are you someone who's out on the construction site? Are you someone who's in the office? Do you need a second pair of glasses? And I mean, just the time and nature of Bruce is incredible. He's over at iGearOptical.com over in Pearl, Mississippi. Go see him. Don't go to a big box store. I know we went a little bit long, but Bruce is worth it. He brought some great points to the table. You are listening to the Andrew Gosser Show on 103.9 WYAB. We will be right back. Oh, yeah. Happy to be here, proud to serve. Every day's a holiday, every meal's a feast, every paycheck's a fortune. It's not the United States Navy, it's not the United States Air Force. It is WYAB.com. Love being here. I'm so grateful and thankful. Let me ask you this, Mr. and Mrs. Listener. We all know that the Democrats want to pack the U.S. Supreme Court. You've heard about it. They've talked about it. They've got to take over the Supreme Court. They've got to make Puerto Rico the 51st state. They want to take over and make Guam another state. They want to go ahead and change the Senate and the structure forever. They want to change the way the court rules forever. Could you imagine Ketanji Brown Jackson being a senior associate justice on the U.S. Supreme Court and her wise ways? What if I told you the Republicans are doing the exact same thing in Utah? Because they don't like that their Supreme Court ruled that trannies can be in boys and girls sports. They don't like the rulings coming out of the Utah Supreme Court, so they wanna change the size of it in the effort to speed up the process. See why sometimes I say I don't wanna break the filibuster? See why sometimes I say I don't wanna do things just because the Democrats are gonna do it? Republicans are the same way. Utah Chief Justice speaks out as Republicans look to expand the state Supreme Court. Utah Chief Justice Matthew Durant cautioned lawmakers against expanding the state Supreme Court, saying it could penalize constituents. And uh, Republican leaders and Governor Spencer Cox support adding two justices to the five-judge panel to speed up the decision-making process, but legal experts said it might have just the opposite effect. Well, you would think that if there were more judges, they could write more opinions and hear more cases. I'm not necessarily agreeing with that, but the move comes amid tension between the legislative and judicial branches over ruling on abortion, transgender athletes, and redistricting that impacted Republicans. You know, elections have consequences. And the Utah Senate put those people on the Utah Supreme Court. And if you don't like trannies participating in your daughter's sports, well, that's a problem. And, as we do the Founding Fathers Friday, our founding fathers would be so proud, not necessarily at the fact that we're having to deal with boys being in girl sports, but the fact that we're having this ruckus political debate because they love that. Go read some of the Federalist Papers. You'll see they had really raucous debate. You also see that they called each other friends. And while there were some heated exchanges, it never got to where we're at today. Pot, meet, kettle. I don't wanna have the US Supreme Court expanded, and I don't wanna have the Utah Supreme Court expanded. I do understand why people wanna get rid of the filibuster, and, I've been honestly thinking back and forth about the pros and the cons of it. But then I think about it, okay, if I go with the pros of it and I get more conservative people in there, what if all of a sudden the conservative isn't the type of conservative that I like? That's why that amendment to have senators elected by the people was just the beginning of the end, as far as having a co-op, or separate co-equal branches of government. That's not true, Chris. I know separate branches of government. The Senate was always supposed to be appointed by the governor and approved by the state house and the state senate, not by the people. The people were supposed to elect their congressmen. They were supposed to be the branch of government closest to the people. Then you had an executive and a group of judges. But it's all been so politicized, and it's been completely taken in directions that, I'm not sure our founding fathers would have appreciated. And we'll talk about another one on Friday in the second hour. It's gonna be a good one. It's gonna be a banger. You know him. You love him. His name is I'm not telling you. You have to tune in on Friday at 11:06 AM to hear about that. And of course, the Democrats are up in arms over this. Utah did give a very liberal ruling to the transgender applicability in being able to participate in sports. And the Utah governor, if you look at him, very much like Mitt Romney, in my opinion. People can sit here and complain about the governors here in Mississippi. I'm telling you, we got great governors here. And I am very grateful and thankful for Tate Reeves. We've got a good Supreme Court. Do I agree with everything they do? No. And it's almost like we have this litmus test inside the conservative movement right now where you have to be dipped in gold and everything has to be 100%. Otherwise, you're dead to me. Move on. Find the next. There's layers and levels to this, ladies and gentlemen. You got everybody from people like Tim Burchett to people like Michael Guest. I agree with them both. Do I wish some of them were a little bit more conservative than others? Absolutely. But you could have a Benny Thompson because of the infighting. How'd that work out for you? You could end up having some of the people that the poor Republicans in Illinois are having to deal with, or the poor Republicans in Minnesota for that matter. And again, I talk to not daily, but a couple times a week, people up there, and they are just wishing that they could be more like Mississippi. So we got to be careful about what we wish for here when it comes to packing the Supreme Court, whether it be at the state level or at the federal level. Let's take another phone call here real quick. Go ahead. You're on the air.
Good morning, Andrew. How are you? This is Pastor JD.
Hey, Pastor. I did call you back. I'm sorry that it took me so long, though. I know it's my fault.
Oh, okay, no problem, no problem. Just holler at me, when you get a chance.
Yep.
But listen. The caller that called earlier, he's talking about, all these investigations and all this. Listen. So, what's the deal? Why don't they appoint a special counsel? I mean, it's a legal mechanism, and he would have more rather than having these clown shows where folks come and testify before Congress. Where nothing gets done.
Oh, I can tell you why they don't want a special counsel. Because if they get a special counsel who's completely independent of the DOJ and independent of the congressmen and senators who are guilty of just the Epstein stuff alone, they're going to be caught and they're going to be perp walked and they're going to have to go ahead and pay the price. And I genuinely believe that we have senators and congressmen who are so knee deep in this that they can't take that chance of having that be exposed. But that's just my opinion.
And that's on both sides, Paul.
Absolutely. Just as
Okay.
much. Yeah, absolutely. Look, we what they've shown us is very select and small, and there's so much more to it. If someone were to come up to me and say, Andy, this is just a Democrat problem, I'd be like, you're crazy.
That's right.
We have our problems on the right side too, and I think that most Republicans would agree with that. Now, I don't want to sit here and go drop the elbow on the Republicans because I feel that the mainstream media and the Democrat information machine does a good enough job on that. But that does not mean that I don't want them held accountable either, Pastor.
That's true. Okay. Well, that's going to be the only way to really get the things done. Otherwise, we're going to have all these little hearings and all these proceedings. And, it looks real good. It's really, what they're doing is posturing, and that's all.
It's all sizzle and no steak.
Exactly. And they would have more far-reaching
investigatory powers. Yep, absolutely.
Right. Well, look, you be blessed, man. Enjoy the show.
Pastor, I'm so grateful and thankful for you being out there. I hope you have a wonderful and blessed day. Stay warm, all right?
Okay, we'll do it. You too. Take care, brother.
Take care, my man. That's Pastor JB, everybody. And that's just another sign from God that I know that I have men like him looking out over me. If I'm saying anything that's spiritually incorrect, I'm going to be corrected instantaneously, and I'm grateful for that. You are listening to the Andrew Gosser Show right here on 103.9. We're going to take our last commercial break on right here on WYAB 103.9. We will be right back.
Hey, I just got back from Ukraine, and Elon Musk called me a traitor. If Elon Musk doesn't understand what it means to stick up for American values and our principles, well, maybe he should just leave it to the people who do. I swore an oath to this nation when I was 22 years old to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States. Pretty sure Elon Musk has never done that. My guess is maybe Elon Musk did swear an oath. Maybe he swore an oath to billionaires like him and his billionaire buddies. So, Elon, hey, I just got.
Oh, yeah. Welcome back to the Andrew Gosser Show right here on 103.9 WYAB. Brother Junk from the Picayune Southern Command chimes in. When Comey and Letitia James got off, I knew the fix was in. Think about that. I'm just letting you all know right now, if any one of us listening to this radio show right now did what Letitia James did, having homes in multiple cities, completely violating the city code in New York, um, we would be cuffed, in jail, perp walked, all the things. We'd be hosed. But that's not how it works because there's actually two classes out there. There's a political class, and then the rest of us. And I even think I might have to reevaluate this over the next couple days. I think there might be 3 classes: the political class, all of us, and then just the true ultra wealthy elite. Um, I really wish I didn't get sent this video, but I did, and it is my favorite United States captain, retired Mark Kelly, and I just wanna play this. It's 43 seconds. I know it's the top of the hour, but it's got me fired up, and we need to talk about it.
Hey, I just got back from Ukraine, and
You just got back from Ukraine. Great. How come you're not taking care of people in Minnesota and Arizona? We've got problems right over here right now. You saying that United States Senator can pat its head, rub its belly, chew bubble gum, and walk at the same time, but the DOJ can't? Is that what you're telling me?
Elon Musk called me a traitor.
Elon Musk called you a traitor, the same guy who's built more jobs and created single-handedly. The U.S. space program is dependent on SpaceX right now, but let's continue.
If Elon Musk doesn't understand what it means to stick up for American values and our principles, well, maybe he should just leave it to the people who do.
Yep, because he had to leave a nation that was persecuting him and his family. You know, he's a South African, a true South African, and he's come to the United States the legal way, the right way, immigrated appropriately, he's become an American citizen, active in politics. And you know what? Sometimes, Senator, we get called things we don't like. They might not even be true. But I'll tell you this, when you gave, an implicit thought to have US soldiers, sailors, Marines, airmen, guardians, Coast Guardsmen not follow lawful orders saying that they were unlawful, you kinda stepped into it right there, didn't you? Yep, I know you did.
I swore an oath to this nation when I was 22 years old to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States.
And you still fall under the UCMJ, in which you violated, so guess what? You fooled around, now you're gonna find out.
Pretty sure Elon Musk has never done that.
No, he just launches people into orbit. All of our communication is basically going through Starlink satellites and other communication satellites launched by SpaceX. You know, for the $1.4 billion we gave SpaceX, we got 3 rockets, 5 engines, and a capability and the capability of reusability, which no other nation has mastered yet. And while I can say that he didn't maybe put his life on the line in a military sense, he certainly has politically, and he's threatened all the time. So I think we can give him a pass on that.
My guess is maybe Elon Musk did swear an oath. Maybe he swore an oath to billionaires like him and his billionaire buddies.
And there you go playing the class warfare ticket because that's the only thing you've got, sound bites and slogans, Mark Kelly. I'm not saying that, everything you say is wrong, but I'm telling you on this situation, you're definitely wrong. You're listening to the Andrew Gosser Show on 103.9 WYB. We'll be back in about 22 hours, ladies and gentlemen. Take care. Be blessed.